sent us, but I did get multiple emails from Ken Jumper, kind of challenging our format here. So I did get an answer from Brent Walls, who's the Olmsted County attorney. And so we have basically a few options we need to discuss. We can eliminate the work study group totally, as you know, and just go back to our ordinance. Or we can, he suggested doing a staff meeting with deadline with one commissioner and one planning commissioner. This is what he said. You can call it a work group, have one commissioner and one planning commission member attend, with the rest of the group county employees. It's called a multidisciplinary staff meeting attended by a liaison from the board and from the planning commission. The board should direct the staff to form that group and give it a deadline to report back so you have a record. And that would make it just a group and not open to the public, just study. That was his suggestion. That's at Brent Walls from Olmsted County. Or we could cancel today and wait for further legal opinion on our ground rules, which we set up last week with no video recording. Or we can continue on with an open meeting with video recording. We all need to discuss this.
I'd be in favor of just going ahead. Let's have a meeting.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. With the video recording.
Let's have it.
Okay.
Is this agreed upon with the rest of the group?
I kind of like the option of one commissioner, one planning commission member.
And working with staff.
I think down the road that'd be good, but we can't probably do that today, you know,
Well, our legal counsel says that's an option.
for today.
Yeah.
We would cancel the meeting after, well, I think Brian has a presentation, but we can cancel the rest of the work study group until we get legal opinion.
Things are going fine, why not just continue as is?
Well, we go around and take a vote too. Whatever everybody thinks.
I personally don't like the video recording.
Okay.
That's,
I thought we got along fine last week without the video recording and that. Get a legal opinion, go through with this meeting, and then the legal opinion comes and we'll go one way or the other.
What do you think?
I'm with the consensus of the group. It doesn't make any difference to me either way, so.
Get it right, Brian?
Mary?
I'm good with going through for today. We got some work done last time. Just, we're spending a lot of time on trying to figure this out. I'd just like to move forward and have some discussion and wait to see if there's another legal opinion that comes forward.
Okay. Dan, were you going to say you were taking a breath
Yeah, right.
to exhale?
Well, I think what's on the agenda today, I mean, we probably can discuss it. I really object to the recorders too. You know, the comment last week was that you want to record this to make sure that no group is putting pressure on this committee. What group do you think is putting pressure on this committee? You're recording yourselves.
Honestly, we have recordings during the commissioner meetings. I don't care if somebody records it. I mean, unless something, if people think they're going to say something in which they don't want people to hear, which then I guess I have an issue with that anyway. So my thing is, what are we hiding? Who cares? Just
We're not really hiding anything, but we're in a formative stage.
Sure.
And people's opinions may change.
Mm-hmm.
So you may ask a question without an opinion, that in the end is not going to be the way you go.
Yep.
But yet it's going to be recorded that you're not really free to bring out all the ideas maybe that are in your mind, that you want to really throw out there.
But we all know that our opinions could change depending on data and all that kind of stuff. So I mean,
Yeah.
we know
But
that.
one of the things that often is done when you're in a study group like this is to do brainstorming, where you throw out ideas that may be so outrageous that everybody's going to say, my God, where'd that come from? But it triggers other thoughts, and you refine it and you say, well, you know, that wasn't so bad after all, and I happened to think of this because of so-and-so's crazy idea. Well, that would be an instance where, as Dan is pointing out, the original throwing out idea could be misconstrued and misused. That's one instant I could think of.
But with that in mind, I'm good to go today to get some work done, because we're under the gun to get work done.
That's right.
And I'm good to go today, and Bob, we need to check out if that's an option. Our next meeting will be held that way, if that's the way that works, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so what you're saying is, what was your fourth
Was
thing?
to continue on today and then wait for a legal opinion on following our ground rules with no video recording. Which keeps it an open meeting. Or our other one is to make it a staff meeting, which is one commissioner and one.
So
Those are our
today,
basic
now what
things.
I'm hearing, I think most of you say is we'll do our meeting today, and then we won't meet again until we find out from an attorney finally what the answer is.
Because we're not taking notes, or we're taking our own notes here for this study group, and that we will have any secretary or whatever taking notes in that. We are responsible for our own stuff. So this meeting is open, so they can be responsible the same way we are.
Mary?
Is there anything wrong with just asking them respectfully if they would just not videotape today until we get a response from the attorney? They're all here, they're all hearing the same things we are, there's plenty of them. Is there anything wrong with that? You know, I mean, they could say no, but they could say yes. We don't know what they would say.
What is the observer's response to Mary's question?
I feel it's the same as my opinion was last week, that we are concerned public and we want to observe what's going on in here, and we want to share with people that can't attend and can't take notes what's going on, because this concerns everybody, not just the people at the table. So I do appreciate being asked, though. Thank you.
One quick question for you. It's now getting down to the point where either you can be here and not videotape, or it's closed period. So then the question is, are you guys willing to sit here and not videotape so that you can at least watch, or else it's going to get closed period and you're not going to be on anything?
Well, if I may respond to that, Justin. I'm Ken Jumper, by the way. I'm probably the person most responsible for videoing here today, or bringing it to this position or point. I've done a lot of research on the open meeting law. As some of you know, I've served in the legislature. I probably know more about the open meeting law than anyone in this room. I've shared a lot of information with Teresa this weekend, an opinion from my attorney who's practiced administrative and government law for 30 years. This is a subcommittee of some sort of the county board, and the open meeting law is extremely clear that this meeting is subject to the requirements of the open meeting law, just as a county board meeting is, for example. This is not a choice between having access to come here and listen and being able to video. I firmly believe that whatever decision you get from whatever judge or whatever attorney, it's going to come down in our favor, that we're going to be able to come here, listen to the meeting, and video it if we wish. So it's not an either or, Justin. It just is, this is what's going to happen. So I certainly have been trying to, in my communications with Teresa, find out where the decision was that made by somebody that somehow this was other than an open meeting, and I haven't been able to come up with that. If somebody could produce something in writing, I'd be certainly more open to believing it. But I haven't found any information in writing on my own part, and Teresa hasn't provided me any.
We actually did have an open meeting last time. We allowed people to sit in.
Mhm.
It never was
It was-
declared a closed meeting.
No, it was also
Okay.
an open
Yeah,
meeting.
And-
it's just the
video.
recorders.
Well, the videoing is allowed as part of the open meeting requirement in our state, so
You're
I'm
right, Tim.
sorry about that.
You're right, but you're wrong. What I'm saying is it's either or. For the fact that it's going to be open, and you can sit here and videotape, or like Teresa's saying, there's a possibility they could turn this into a work group Not worried about the, and you're shut out anyway.
Well,
So
we'll
that's
see.
why I'm saying it's either or. It very well could be. So I'm just saying, you could not videotape and say, we kindly back down, we're appreciative you let us be here, and we won't videotape so we can stay here. Or you can keep pushing it, but I'm just warning you, there's a chance they could backdoor it and say it's a work group, you're not allowed, period. So I don't want to fight that fight either. So
Well-
all I'm saying is just be aware that
So my
might be
understanding
cut out.
is that the answer is no, that you will videotape today.
Well, I can't speak for other people here, but I certainly plan on
Okay, what do
doing
the
that.
rest of you say?
Hi, Donna Bucky. This is the biggest thing that will ever happen to this county. And why you all wouldn't want to provide transparency to the citizens every step of the way of this process. If the citizens can only read this document just a few weeks before the hearing, it takes time to fact check and to research what you've come up with and to let the people know. And I can just see that if you close this down to 2 staff people, or if you don't let us videotape here, you're denying the people a chance to be educated about what you intend to do to the rest of us. And it's going to be, the fix will be in. We go into that hearing without people knowing and being able to weigh and reason and discuss and debate this with each other. The fix is in. So I don't know why anyone here wouldn't want complete transparency.
I'm Croxton. I agree with Ken, or with Glenn actually. We can take all the notes that we want, but I don't personally think a video is necessary. We're here to listen, to learn, and we can pass on the information without a video, my opinion.
Okay. There's only one that says we don't have to video, but the rest of them all, I think, are of the opinion that we video today, and we'll see where it goes after this. I think, just a minute, I think the point you make that it's like us, you, and this committee is not quite right. These people all live in this county too, and they are all concerned about the environment, about their health, about everybody else's health and well-being. So it isn't like this group is going to just go willy-nilly and say, let them come. I think if you, from last week already, you noticed that they're trying to work this ordinance so that it is restrictive, so that things don't just get run slipshod over everything. I mean, we have people representing soil, we have people representing health, we have people representing our township roads and our county roads and everything else. So I really don't like this concept of we and they.
Donna, the term fixes in is not appropriate, in my opinion.
So anyway, let us proceed. Ken?
No, I just want to allay any concerns that any of these people have, and I know all of you. We're not going to misuse this video. We're not going to distort what you say or misrepresent what you say or in any way mislead the public about what you say. I know that's a concern of yours, Dan, and I just wanted to say that. That's not going to happen, okay?
But Ken, you already did that.
Oh, how?
When you and I had a discussion here, maybe a month or two ago on,
On the phone?
yes, part of my whole discussion with you, you had said at the board meeting, not the whole discussion. So you've got a track record of bits and pieces. That's what upsets me.
Yeah, I guess I don't recall that. I actually took notes of our phone conversation, Rick.
Yeah, but not all of it got said. And that's even with the video, where the bits and pieces get put out there, it's not the whole meeting.
Well, you know,
Yeah, I know.
you can have your opinion, I'll have mine.
I think
Okay.
Justin stated it well, saying that, we really want to have a work study group without recording, or we are going to have a staff meeting work on it,
So at this point,
basically.
we are going to close
We're
the
gonna-
discussion with the
At this point,
observers.
yeah.
They are now observers. Take your pictures. I would guess that people on this group will probably monitor some of the YouTube stuff and see what's there and see how much of it's there and how much is not there. So I would like to rearrange our agenda just a bit, if I could, because Dan and Brian have their stuff all set up for a wonderful picture show. We will move their part of the agenda up to the beginning, and then we'll just move everything else down, okay? Sound all
good.
right with you?
Yep.
So, Brian and Dan, take it away. Will this show enough, or do I need to turn off the lights? I think.
More about
Yeah, that's right. See if you'll-
Yeah, now we put it to sleep with all our talk.
Sounds good.
Making a different sound.
Green light now. Yeah, but no light on this coming.
It's coming, it's coming.
There you go,
It just
Bob.
takes those rolls a while to fire up.
You have to have the lights off.
I'm gonna wait and see.
There it's coming.
Oh, there it comes, you're right, maybe lights.
We got, Rick, we got your pop on.
Is that better?
Get the water bottle out.
Oh, I'll take it.
Perfect.
All right, I guess Rick, feel free to chime in anytime, because you're the one kind of driving this. When I was invited last time, we were asked to collect some data and just show it on a map to kind of get this process rolling. So what you're looking at now on the screen is basically a map that just shows the green is the corporate limits for the cities, the kind of tannish color is the township outlines, and the black and gray are the state and county roads. I can't really remember the names. Who's the person at Geologic Survey that sent the sand rock? They sent us a coverage that showed the sand rock at or within 50 feet of the surface, which is what's shown here in that brownish color. Then we had talked last time about trying to get some information on streams. We got a layer of Class 2A streams from the Pollution Control Agency, which are shown here in the blue. Let me make those a tiny bit narrower so they're easy to see.
Okay, what are they now? What is it?
No, what it is there's two different layers here. One being through the Department of Natural Resources is called Public Waters. The MPCA goes beyond that, what they call Class 2 soil, or Class 2, which are tributaries, creeks of like springs, that sort of stuff that feeds trout streams that they want to protect above and beyond what the DNR does, just for water quality, clarity, quantities, different things that they want to protect also. So keep in mind, there's two different. One, we contacted the Geological Atlas, and what I did was have them send down a layer, which Dan said before, and the brown is your sand that's 50 feet or less, that's accessible to.
Rick, and that's all these areas, right?
Yes.
Those 10.
Then what I call the PCA, and we had some discussions with them. They put us over to the GIS department and then sent us down what they considered their Class 2 public waters, or Class 2 waters, not public waters. Then we went to the DNR and we put in what the DNR considers the public water inventory for this county.
Which I will turn on now in this purple color. And the coverage is for the whole state, which is why it extends off the edge of the county border there, but.
So purple is all of the waterways, not just,
Purple
all
is
of
the
them.
water that they
So that's the
consider in the
Department of
public
Natural-
water inventory.
That's what the Department of Natural Resources,
Okay,
The blue is more
and the
area
blue is the more,
in PCA.
then the pollution control takes Class 2, which,
okay.
as you can see, there are a lot of like
Okay.
Direct.
springs, tributaries, small little tributaries that actually maybe don't have trout in them, but they are feeders into what they call public waters, that the PCA would like to see protected also.
Okay.
And that's part of the December, or this study here that gets looked at.
Right.
And that's in the DNR trout, what they call their trout streams coverage is basically almost the same as the class 2. Okay, then last time we had talked about that, I think it was a state proposed rule or something of 1 mile from each of these streams. So I did a 1 mile buffer on the class 2, which is that really light tan right there.
Now, is that that's from class 2, is the DNR rule from their waters or from MPCA's class 2?
Well, I
1
went through
mile.
and did them both, so you
Okay.
can see.
The
what
1
they're-
mile goes to both.
Okay, all right.
This would be 1 mile on just the class 2, and then I did a 1 mile on the entire public water inventory, which you can then see
There's very little.
county outline.
So that's showing us what's left.
Yes.
Basically,
It could even-
right.
At this point. At this
Right.
point,
Just
yeah.
see the dark brown is the only thing that really
Yeah.
has potential at that point.
Yeah.
Then we had talked a little bit last time about having a 1,000-foot setback from any residence. And we don't, as we talked about last time, currently have that data, and it's gonna be pretty labor intensive to try and put that in. Just to do an approximation, I got the septic layer from the zoning office. Now, Rick, how many of the septics are in this? It isn't a total.
It isn't a total, but the best we could come up with is, we've been doing septic since '85 on, so there's a lot of septic systems in there. And it's all been put in on parcel based. So what you actually have is the number of septic systems in this county that have been approved since '85.
That have been built.
That have been, well, let's put it this way, that have been built. Not that they're compliant anymore, but this is what we show that we have.
And then we just did this as an approximation to give an idea of what a 1,000-foot, then I did a 1,000-foot buffer on those, which is the light blue, those dots there. Which was all a lot easier to see on my screen than it is on this screen.
And we still have other things to address. I mean, when we're still maybe talking about sinkholes, or we're talking about other things out there, yeah. The areas will get smaller and smaller and smaller. Just out of curiosity though, I was wondering, can you tell me what that chunk is down there in the corner of the screen that's got nothing too close to it? That one?
That right there, that's the, like, Reno Bottoms area, out in the river. That's highway, that black line straight down, it's like Highway 26, so everything.
This is 26.
Yeah, east of that is stuff that's out in the river bottoms.
This is the wetland.
So that would fall into floodplain or something, you know?
Well, it's probably state-owned land too, though,
Yeah.
state and federal.
Okay.
Right, and basically for the Mississippi, they just have that one line in their public water inventory, even though Mississippi's way wider than that, so I just buffer on the line.
But Joe, this is what we were all thinking was going to happen when we talked about some of the setbacks that we were really wanting to look at. There's nothing left to mine. I mean, if,
Can you read what the townships or cities are, 'cause I just can't see them, not knowing the area.
Caledonia.
Yeah, over there with all the.
That's Spring Grove, and then Wilmington right next to it with all the brown in it.
That's mostly Wilmington and some of Spring Grove Township right there.
But even looking at all the septic systems, there's,
Do you want me to zoom in
There's
on
lots of houses in
just
them.
Wilmington or something?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those are, again, those dots are wells or septic
That's the
systems?
septic
Septic.
online.
Now, there's a lot more residents out there that probably
Right.
still,
And
we
there's,
have,
and there's feedlots out there.
and there's feedlots out there also, yes.
Do you allay for your feed lines?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of sinkholes involved.
Do you turn the feed line here?
I have to add it.
So you see, look at the red dots now, feedlots, they're actually probably houses that are out there that we,
The red dots are feedlots.
Feedlots.
Yeah, so you start putting setbacks off of
put
those.
setbacks off of those, and when everything's up there either.
What's, is that 1,000-foot?
Well, there's no setback from the feedlot in
Okay.
the current ordinance, just from dwellings.
But the likelihood is that there may be a dwelling
yeah.
There's a
there,
dwelling with
There's
them.
a feedlot, there'd be some, they live pretty.
somebody's nearby.
Yeah, I mean, if we would want to do a actual layer of the residence, it would probably take someone on the staff to sit down, overlay on an air photo, and manually put a dot on each house of residence.
I know Dan and I talked, that might be something that we could contact the university to have internships, some kind of an internship work with us during the summer months to actually give us that layer.
Well, we'd only really need it in this area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would want to do it countywide. If we're going to do it countywide.
However, that's the one thing that can be
It's-
manipulated by any mining company if they wanted to buy up the residences or buy up the feedlots and make them out. You're still sitting with that possibility, you know, that's, even though it's a nice setback, that they could overcome
But
that.
there might be a well there then too, and a septic system. I mean, if there's a dwelling, there's going to be a well nearby. Right?
But the well could be sealed.
Yeah.
If they wanted up, they could seal
Yeah,
it.
they could.
This would be a lot of information on it, but.
It's like a kaleidoscope. Like a kaleidoscope.
It's interesting to see how all the different streams affect every part of the county, except
Even
for
in
the southwest down
Wilmington,
by
take all those red dots
Spring
and
Grove.
everything out of there, there's nothing there either. Unless you'd have to buy up huge parcels, and I don't think that would be possible over there.
Yeah, that's a.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
farmland
you
is
keep
one-
that in mind too, is all the small parcels that are out there that,
Yeah.
What's the scale that this is at, Dan?
Well, basically, I'm just zoomed to the county layer, so there isn't really a scale
We're
on
not
it.
looking like a 1 to 1,000 or something?
No,
So we really don't know how, like that gray area in Wilmington, or that brown area in Wilmington Township, we really don't know how much area there is between those. I mean, you could have 3 miles between there, right?
I mean, yeah, I can just do like a quick measure here if you went from,
But out there in Wilmington, there's, well,
Well, maybe.
there's some grazes in the ground and that and everything else around these things is where there's, you know, small pockets of sand, everything around them is fine. Yeah, sure, instead of us trying all the feedlots in Wilmington, probably got the most feedlots in the county.
and keep another thing in mind, the board has already went on record of no processing that, you know, so I mean, we're really limiting the frac sand industry in this county.
Just the geology is doing most of that by itself.
Remote logging it, slows things down.
yeah, that's really.
Well, that, and
Not all that.
the thing is, of course, money can buy anything, but you know, your transportation's all on, you get a lot of that, areas served by township roads.
Mhm.
So I mean, and a lot of them are smaller roads that would have to have a whole lot of upgrading and money spent. So I mean, it's not saying it can't be done, but it's,
Justin, can you see that gray line I just drew on there?
Yep.
That is 1.286 miles.
What is it from here to here, here to there, and there to there? What's that acreage? Like, what are we looking at? Are we looking at, I mean, do you still have 200 acres? Or, I mean, is it like 50 feet? Or like what? Because I know, you know, it looks like, well, there's a lot, but really, you know, the scale, okay, what is that? You know, I mean, how is, yeah, is it possible to find out what that area is or anything?
Yeah, if this thing was acting like it's acting, all right on it.
Straight down along the roadway.
It's 3 miles from that highway to town, to Spring Road.
I can't see it.
So let's say if you wanna get the maximum, go straight across.
Yeah, even if you had a triangle like. So you're still talking 400 acres. If somebody said, hey, I want to put a 400-acre mine, technically, I mean, you got the one dot in there, but I mean, technically, you could have a 400-acre mine in that one spot, right? So I mean, I know it looks like there's not a lot left, but that's one spot. There's a bunch more. So I mean, just putting into perspective, there's still a lot of area left over.
I think what Justin wants you start doing the rest of your setbacks and the rest of the homework, that's kind of really.
And it very well could, but I just
Very
don't,
much so.
I just don't want that mindset out there that, well, there's nothing. Well, there still is. It's that whole phrase, we take a white piece of paper, put a dot in the middle, and a lot of people say, oh, this paper's junk. You forget about all the other stuff. I'm just saying, there's still quite a bit too, so I don't want to get off that there's none. There's still some.
But you,
Go ahead.
but you take a look at that, especially this order, some of our best crop and flattest crop ground we've got in this county is sitting right here.
True, but
You know,
I'll debate on that one real quick second. We know that it happens all the time, that if you could buy that acreage and you're gonna make $3 million off of it, they'll rip the cropland out. So that
right.
argument's gonna be tough, you know. So, you know, we can't go there because they're gonna turn it up. If there's profit, there's profit. So we can't go by that.
Now, we say there's sand under there, but we don't know what that is. You say brown is sand, but we don't know what kind of sand is.
Well, I don't know exactly, because I'm not a geologist. The geologist, their descriptor in that is sand rock at or within 50 feet of surface. Now, I'm not sure how sand rock relates to sand, frac sand, you know, I don't know.
The sand rock is probably more something we use for commercial purposes.
Well, we're speculating until we have more sand. We don't.
Right. But the sand that the frac sand companies want, yeah, they're probably within that 50 feet of what we're talking about.
I think this whole thing is going to, before we spend too much time on hours of operation, road use and all this stuff, if we keep doing our setbacks on these things, it's going to eliminate most of it.
You know, it might be worth, there's probably is data available as to what's under that brown rock. Somebody has it.
Well, I thought, weren't they supposed to do with that geological survey?
That's coming.
Okay.
We're probably about 5 weeks away from that being published.
So then
We'll have copies.
Then we'd actually know what's under there?
Yeah.
That was a lot of
And
this.
what kind of depth in what area?
Yeah, because it's St. Peter or whatever, that's what they really want, is you're down the beach.
Yeah, that's underneath the limestone, isn't it?
Or underneath the sandstone, but yeah.
Yeah, sandstone, limestone, above, so they can have some tough digging to get down to that rock, 50 feet down in some areas.
Oh, yeah.
But it's already eliminated, the setbacks, I mean, you know, it's already, some of that will be eliminated. If you do the setbacks,
I'm just saying, you know, if the sands up shallow, then the hard rock's gonna be gone above it. But if you can go through that limestone, that's a lot of blast when you get through it.
Well, the big thing with
Spring Grove, it might be right at the surface where it's
Now,
easier to access.
another question I have, and I'm not in your decisions, but I'm just bringing this up. In the current planning ordinance, does it say it can be on a township gravel road, or it has to, one of the county, the ones I read, somebody said it had to be on a hard surface road, could not be on a gravel road or a rock road. So if you went to something like that, that would cover a lot of Wilmington Township, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we don't have that as an ordinance now.
But, I mean, that could be, I mean, if you wanted to restrict more, you could restrict that way, right?
Or they
in
can
other
be,
ones, they've done it where it's gotta be on a paved road,
Yeah.
the township, the mine's responsible to pave that township road. The issue that a lot of counties have had with that is then they've got a paved road, and the townships can't keep up on the maintenance of those paved roads. But I know that's the one that they backdoor, that is, the mining company will pay to pave that road.
Unless the ordinance said you can't have it, it's
Right.
gotta stay the way
Right.
it is.
Yep, exactly.
Period. I was just thinking of another ordinance thing you could throw in there to help cover.
Yeah, but I'm
some-
looking at too, of all these secondary roads. And Brian, you maybe could give some of that, as all the probably inadequate bridges we've got that cannot take that type of tonnage going across them?
Yeah, it's a
Especially
good point.
townships?
Yeah, we have put a few posted bridges on the county side, but there's a lot on the township system. We have just under 50 structurally deficient bridges in the county, so most of them will be posted. And then we have some other ones that might not be considered structurally deficient. They'd be functionally absolutely too narrow to start putting a bunch of trucks over two-way traffic. So we could have 70, 80 bridges in the county that could affect mines.
So I mean, all those things come into play here.
Which, same thing, mines can pay to replace them and eliminate the deficiency. If it's a small bridge, put in double-ended boxes for $200,000 and be done with it, move on. If it's a big bridge, it can be, $1.5 million.
But this all this bridge stuff would have to be done with township rule, because they're the government agency that controls that.
Yeah, it still needs to be townships involvement, counties involvement, states involvement.
Townships would be very easily to control that whichever way they want it.
If they want. Although tell me a township that's going to say, no, don't replace my bridge.
And most of the bridges, I'm familiar, you're familiar with one by one. I don't think there's very few left, maybe one or two left in the whole township that are deficient bridges.
You guys are even better down there.
I think there's like one or two that, and I think they're on your plan if I remember correctly.
That's been good, Dan. I mean, as we move along here though, and try to put more layers on there, you can be able to maybe break it down per township on a map or something like that, so it's easier to.
Yeah, doing these maps is, once you have the data in, doing the maps is easy.
I mean, this might seem like it's outside the box a little bit, but you get into Wilmington and stuff like that, so what, there's 36 sections in Wilmington. For someone to contact a landowner within the Wilmington Township to identify that karst topography, like a sinkhole, those landowners know as well as anyone where those sinkholes are, and they have not been identified on our maps. I mean, some have been identified, but there's a lot of them out there that haven't. We run into that when you talk about feedlots and stuff like that. All of a sudden, a sinkhole will come up. A landowner knows of a sinkhole, an active one that is not mapped. So to make those 36 contacts, or whatever contacts it would take in Spring Grove Township or Wilmington Township, you might be able to map a lot of them.
How many sinkholes are down in that part of the county compared to the rest of the county that has some of that? There's a lot of sinkholes up in the northern part of the county, and the eastern side is here a lot by Spring Grove.
I think Wilmington and Spring Grove have got a good number of them. They're all over.
Yeah.
But going through, I mean, if there was a mine that somebody came in and looked for, that's part of what we would do is an actual inventory, and it's going to include the borings, everything else, but you'd also take the inventories to show us where everything was at on the ground.
Well, one of the things we did consider though, wasn't it, if we come up with a map here that we're talking about setbacks of the known features we've got, and if you end up with almost a blank map, then you've got something to stand on for a ban. If there's nothing left, why take it any further?
Yeah, this is kind of a dumb question, but if there's a sinkhole, doesn't it make it easier to get to?
What do you mean get to?
To get to the sand, if there's a sinkhole there, does it make it easier to get, makes it more difficult to get to?
Well, sinkhole basically is a direct conduit that goes, the karst topography, everything underneath it has eroded away, so you got a direct conduit for water and everything goes straight down.
So how, do landowners report this to people or not? I don't know. I mean, how would we know if there's sinkholes there?
If it's a problem by a roadway, by a house, by a well, they'll report it a lot of times. If it's out in the middle of a field, they might fill it in on their own by putting other garbage in the past or clay to cap it or
Dump
something, you
sand
know.
in there or
But
something.
I think the knowledge not to do that is hopefully changed over the last 50 years.
Now it has.
Yeah,
In
but
the
it
past,
was
it
in the
used to.
past, yeah. Yeah.
It used to be a good dumping ground for their household garbage.
Not understanding what
it was doing.
Goes right to the groundwater,
Yeah.
Our office has been working with a lot of those people now. They want to put up a small diversion around so the runoff from the fields aren't direct conduit into those, they divert the water around.
Sinkhole go like on right on the golf course right outside of town here. A lot of years there's one that opens up out there. I haven't seen it yet this year, but I think last year it had made a round hole again, you know, down in that ravine there.
But when a sinkhole opens up, what is actually happening? There's a hole in the limestones there?
Yes,
There's
there's a void in the limestone.
Void in the limestone.
Most of the time, we'll try to dig down, we take backhoes, and if we can step down and get down 40 to 50 feet,
Yeah.
then we'll start layering back up, you know, with clay and black, you know, plastic, you know, or whatever, and try to do that. But lately now, they've gone away from sealing them, they're gone more to diverting those.
You might find a hole, you might find a fracture in the rock.
Fracture in the limestone, which would be below the sand or above the sand?
Above the sand is where, in a lot of the counties where I'm aware of, I don't know what.
Because I had one that opened up 40 feet, maybe not 40 feet, 30 feet across, and went down 20 feet, and everything went down in the sand.
Yeah.
And then we dug and dug and dug and dug, and it was constantly sand. We never did find
The
the
void.
actual void.
That's how we get caves. If we had enough, we could have a tourist attraction.
A lot of the ones I've dealt with, or like a dozen sinkholes since I've been here, and they're pretty much it's that limestone layer up above the sand is where we're encountering.
Above the sand, with the fractures above the sand.
Yeah, but there has to be something, in some of the areas, you know, obviously to get that water through the sand.
Yeah, I think it's gonna vary.
Yeah, very so. So there's no hard and fast rule there, how they work.
Other comments, questions?
This is a very interesting map.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to thank Dan. I mean, Dan, you did a nice job putting this all together. I mean, it's,
I printed out a hard copy for the committee too, which basically doesn't have the feedlots, but it's got everything else that we looked at here with the multicolored map, so. Once I turn this off, you want to,
But now, again, while that's up there, right now, the DNR's proposal is to stay a mile back from their designated trout streams, or is it class 2 waters?
both.
Both?
That's the recommendation.
It's where you would need a permit.
They would need to come in to
Need
get
a
a permit.
permit that they can mine with it.
You have to be approved with that permit.
By the
permit.
DNR.
Yes.
So it's a permit, so they will be able to mine potentially with a man, unless we have an ordinance that says not.
Now, there isn't any railroads nearby till the other side of Rito, right?
Just over by the city.
By the
Just by the river,
Mississippi.
yeah, all the way up and up. Well, that's up in your capacity as far as trains, so, you know, getting additional spurs added onto that line at the time being may be difficult depending on where roads wishes. Wisconsin side has a lot more capacity.
All the way up from Malden, between the highway and railroad, there is no, basically no, or very small little places where a few people cut just a little hay off, but nothing that you could really spur into do anything actually.
Feel like you've learned a lot here?
And you have a hard copy of that for us? you
Yeah,
said?
it's roll up right line right over there.
Oh, okay.
There it is. Oh, we can paste that on the wall.
Can you get some small ones, Dan?
Yeah.
Kind of an eye-opener right there.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Streams and waterways.
For those of us who are visual learners, it's great.
Yeah.
Okay. We ready to move on to the next item?
Oh, for sure.
Thank you, Dan,
For sure.
very
Okay.
much. And Brian, putting this all together. Okay, one of the other things that you brought up last time that you wanted to talk about today is the threshold concept versus commercial industrial concept. So who wants to talk about that?
Well, I guess I put together a little handout here. But it's just a different way of describing or defining the types of mines in the county. And base it on thresholds. You know, and there's many different types of thresholds. It could be loads of material, could be size of acreage of a mine, could be yardage called out per year or for the lifetime of the mine. I mean, there's all kinds of discussion we could have on that alone. And then the idea of, for instance, a commercial mine maybe being a lower threshold or meeting certain performance standards that would enable it to be a commercial mine. And that would be regardless if they're mining limestone, shale, sand, whatever. And then you'd get, if a so-called commercial mine couldn't meet those performance standards or those minimum standards, they'd possibly go up to the next threshold, which would be an industrial mine. And then they'd have to meet an additional set of performance standards and quite possibly be under, for instance, an interim use, which would be a short-term permit to allow just that owner to mine that material. And then, of course, if a mine owner or proposer can't demonstrate that they can meet those performance standards, it could possibly be prohibited. So, it's just, I just put this together this morning because I thought maybe we'd touch on that a little bit. But I also mentioned here that there are currently registered mines in Houston County, and they're different than the permitted mines that have come through since the 1970s. We've had several conditional use permits for mines that have been issued since the 1970s up till today. So just leave it at that.
The question that comes to my mind on those, Bob, when you're talking about those existing mines, the permitted ones or the registered ones, whatever, and we've talked as a group, if we go down the road here and find that we don't, look through setbacks and stuff, that frac sand mining will be allowed in certain areas. How do you keep those existing mines, as long as they're permitted already, to be able to start frac sand mining?
Well, our attorney has said that that's a different threshold, the threshold can't be met, and you'd have to set that threshold. That maybe that's into the next category. That's up for a lot of discussion on that, no doubt.
Because, you can see people that want to start a frac sand mine saying, oh, you're just going to let the ones that are already here do it, huh? And no new ones.
Well, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, right, I know, but that's what you'd hear. That's what you'd hear.
At some point, those existing ones are going to need to expand, or they're going to change their intensity of what they're currently doing at that point, full spend the new permitting.
If they can't meet thresholds for instance, road use, it's so many loads per day, well, then that knocks them up into this industrial. They're going to have to come in with an operation plan. So that's going to tell us right there whether they can demonstrate that or not.
Bob, do some of these mines that already have permits, do they have road use tonnage things on them yet, or no? Or are they kind of open-ended, or most of them have?
It depends,
So there's some that don't have any that maybe kind of open-ended?
Right.
Okay.
Some were issued conditional uses with very few conditions put on them, or none,
Sure.
So, that's.
But if they do any changes, they would have to apply for a new permit? Is that,
Well,
The way it is
based on the
now.
thresholds, what,
How big are a lot of these older mines from prior to 1972 and stuff? I mean, area-wise, are they under 40 acres? Are they small mines where they
Well,
would
some of them
pull out the
actually are
volumes that they want?
40 or 80 that they described when you registered,
So relatively small areas that if they're gonna call for X mine out, if they wanna haul a lot of sand, they're gonna come in fairly quickly to get a new permit.
Yeah, so.
If for X mines, they wanna be 200 plus acres.
But you don't think they would take 80 if it was available?
Oh, sure they would. Absolutely.
They'd probably have to get under the right set
No,
of
it-
conditions for
Well,
transportation.
I shouldn't say that they will. The large mining companies are not gonna want to deal with these little small sites.
Right.
But the little mom and pop operators, some of the small operators we have in our county, if they can sell the sand as frac sand and ship it out, if they can do it economically, why would
It looks like in some of the other ordinances that Rick sent out, the Wabasha, the Winona, Gilmore, that I didn't see any thresholds. Any of that looks like they're using the commercial industrial concept.
Yep.
Is there any reason why we couldn't use the commercial industrial concept and put thresholds?
That'd be the idea.
Well, I think, isn't that what we were talking about last time, wasn't it, about having kind of both?
Right. The commercial would have to meet this set of thresholds, whatever it is. Then your industrial would be a step up, and then prohibitive if they can't meet any of those thresholds.
Which actually makes it more restrictive than some of our neighbors.
Right. Yep.
And when you're limited, or the new mines that you would even talk about a lot, you could put it in there like one per year, if that, you could limit the amount of them that new mines and stuff.
But this concept of treating everybody alike, some of the rock quarries that are in there right now are up to 150,000 tons, you say? Is that what you said last week?
we have one quarry at 150,000, we have one at 100,000.
Okay.
The other ones are quite a bit smaller than.
Okay, so we have maybe 2 in the county that are over 100,000?
Possibly 3.
Possibly 3. And what would be the average of the existing construction mine, sand mines? 50 maybe, is that what you said?
The sand is 50, yeah.
Sand is 50 right now, and rock,
50
limestone?
50 is the largest.
50 is the
right?
largest.
Red River,
Yeah,
50 is the largest.
yeah, when I was talking to some of the operators out there, they were at or near 50,000 cubic yards coming out in per year. Out of the sand pits.
So if you were thinking of a volume threshold, I wouldn't want to start at 150 for the sand. Especially if we only have 2 limestone quarries that are doing that right now. We'd almost have to, I know you don't like the term grandfather in, but somehow we have to allow for what those existing rock quarries are doing right now, but they'd have to be, if we put, say we put 75,000 tons as a threshold to trigger in, and you're gonna have 2 rock quarries that are above that, you're gonna have to use some term to exclude them, from not becoming an interim. I don't know how, can that be done? Or?
Well, existing prior to a certain date.
Existing
or
prior to a certain
under
date.
existing
Yeah.
conditional use permit.
Or you could put the threshold, if, right now, the largest sand mine is 50,000, you could put the threshold at, 60, 70, 75, whatever you wanted. And then from that point forward, at that point, that would trigger an industrial, that would then become an industrial mine. Is that what you're saying? That would require an interim permit.
But you see, right now, we're using the definition between metallic and non-metallic, and that non-metallic included rock, sand, everything is within that definition.
Right, we don't have any, right now in our ordinance, but in our ordinance right now, we don't distinguish between commercial and industrial. So we probably have to first, if you want to go that route, distinguish between commercial and industrial.
Mhm.
And then we call a mine an industrial mine, other than these ones that were existing prior to, and any new ones that we're gonna go to, I don't know how, well, I mean, that's open for discussion, how you'd want to do that. If you've got an existing mine out there that's at 50, and he goes to 75, he's in a brand new ballgame if you select 75 as a threshold. I don't know, you know, that's a number we got to pick. If you're going to go that route, a number we have to pick. What is going to be that threshold?
Why would we pick more?
No, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, right now, a lot of it's based on, and a lot of it's going commercial, going to agricultural. We do at times, we're gonna run into problems of like 07, 08, 10, the floods that came through. There was, everybody was scrambling then to try to fill in the holes, trying to put everything back right. You're gonna get those types of situations happening. But I think if you went on a threshold 75, it's far under what I think any industrial uses would go to.
But like we talked to, we can go on a threshold and say, like we said, between 50 and 75, and have it into that during flooding events, you can come in for emergency permits for, you know, we know that, yeah, you know, so I mean, that really wouldn't be too big of an issue, that we can lift that on acts of God and stuff, you know.
See, there's, as we go forward, if you're comparing these new sand mines, if there are any, to existing quarries, there's going to have to be a lot of exceptions for the existing quarries compared to anything new coming in, because we have rock quarries right now within 50 feet of trout stream. We have them below the water table.
Right.
You know, so I mean, there's going to be all kinds of things that are going to have to be excluded from this new regulation because they're already pre-existing. But so it's not just volume; it's other things.
But here's a question though, I mean, we're talking about rock and stuff too, but I mean, comparing, trying to stay on the sand thing, I mean, why is it not just on the sand side?
Because the argument was you wanted to keep things somewhat even, but I don't see how you can. I mean, to be defensible, you want to have, why would you, I mean, the argument, the other side of the argument would be, why do you have separate set of rules for sand and not for rock? I mean, the argument is you're trying to keep it all equal, but I don't see how you can keep it equal, because you're right, I mean, limestone and rock is so much different.
I think by using the definitions, commercial and rock, quarries and that stuff, one thing, when we're talking about rock quarries, man, we basically think of gravel right off the bat. But that's not where really the economic benefits come out of the rock quarries. It's all the lime that they put on the farmland so to grow the crops. That's where the economic value out of these rock quarries is most.
More than road rock?
Huh?
More than road rock?
Oh yeah, the lime, all the farmers put on their land, and that stuff, a lot of years or every few years they have lime. And usually a maintenance thing is like 3 ton, sometimes 4 ton, whatever it kind of calls in that. And if we lose this ag lime thing, and that's what makes the money in this town,
Of course, that's still limestone. I mean, if you can.
Yeah.
Byproduct.
It's
byproduct.
It's a byproduct of rock. They can either crush it separately, or some of them depends on the quarry where they'll, screen out a certain amount of that, but they can't take it all out. Once in a while, they'll take it, down a lot more if they need concrete rock. Then they, it's a way of getting the fines out of there without, and using the finer stuff for ag lime. And having the coarse clean rock, more coarse clean rock for septics, concrete and things like that. So we've got to be really put a lot of thought into how we are leaving that alone.
But we know that the big issue is.
The issue is sand, so.
Right, and in like the silica part of it, which is the big issue, so I guess the question that I'm just throwing out there is, why aren't we deciphering between the two? That you can take limestone and gravel and whatever you want at this volume, but sand can only be restricted to this volume for the fact that we're looking at the health risks of the sand part. We haven't seen a lot of the health risks on the limestone side of it. So that would be the differentiation between the sand and the limestone, is the sand at this volume has more health risks than the limestone. So that would be the deciphering you know, okay, you can only take out this much sand. You can take out this much gravel, but only this much, you know, that's what I'm saying. There clearly is a difference,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Well, you've got the draft that you guys worked on before. Okay, maybe we can write down that draft if you, at this point, is that what you want to do? I mean, because you are defining it between the two.
Right, in detail.
In detail, yeah. But
So is that where you wanna go?
we're talking about industrial commercial.
The industrial commercial and that. There is terminologies from the state and industry standards from when we were doing that you can differentiate between the two. Or whatever, however you want to separate them. Right on that, Brian, or?
Yep, industrial, commercial.
Yeah,
Well, that's right, you know,
grabbed my
we had
wrong
discussion.
packet when I left home, so. Just kind
Can
of
somebody explain to me, I get confused between the cubic yards and the tons.
Yard is just a little bit bigger than a ton.
It's like 1.1 or 1.2 or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
They're close.
They're close. But yards are a little bit bigger. All right, now, back to the original draft statement here. It talks about interim use permits. And it says here that if a holder of an interim use permit, let's see, or a construction minerals conditional use permit, so that would be one that's already existing. On page number 2, halfway down there, under interim use permits.
You look at the.
Let's see.
Are you on the commercial or the?
Under the interim use permit, under the
No,
first
that's
paragraph.
industrial.
Industrial or commercial?
Page number 2, industrial.
Industrial.
Industrial, yeah.
Because they both look the same, but.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
commercial,
okay.
there's no commercial in here.
Okay, I guess
This is commercial, you got the
the
industrial.
industrial, yeah.
We're talking industrial.
Yeah. Now, it states right here that if a holder of an interim use permit or of a construction minerals conditional permit, let's see, I gotta read that. What does that exactly mean? Construction minerals conditional use permit to excavate and mine materials intends to excavate and mine industrial minerals or metals at permitted excavation or mining site. The permit holder must first obtain an industrial minerals interim use permit. So that's an existing site that has a use permit. Now, if he wants to go mine sand at that existing site, he needs to come in to get an interim permit.
That's what it says.
That's what it says right there.
Must obtain.
And it's a change in use is what we,
Yeah, okay, a change in use, all right, so,
of an existing site, plus, whatever.
yeah.
See, this was written up on, calling the frac sand being all industrial and the existing ones being all commercial. And that's, if you want to keep going that route, instead of having the industrial ones being called the larger mines and the commercial ones being called the smaller, so it's kind of how we want it to be.
Yeah, the commercial is gonna include a lot of small mines, so you're gonna have to use them, they're gonna be small, other than, especially the sand
That's
ones.
how this is written, though. It can be a small mine that's hauling out, 5 truckloads of frac sand, or 5 truckloads up to Winona to be processed for frac sand to be sent out. It falls under industrial, not commercial. It's just there's one truck that goes out as industrial. So is that how we want this to be worded, or do we want to have these small mines stand at the commercial site even if it's being trucked out to a processing plant for frac sand?
Seems it needs to be
Because
stated
if there's
very
one truck going out, are we
differently.
gonna monitor every truck to see where it's going? It's difficult to monitor.
But instead of monitoring based on, or classifying based on volume, we classify based on use.
That's what this is in here currently, is based on use.
Right.
Which would be tough to enforce. You won't know where that truck's going. You don't have the manpower to follow it. So you're going, almost at with a volume threshold, which you have a better handle on, but you don't know.
I would think it would be easier for Rick and Bob.
Well, we talked about that in subdivision 2 there, below there, as far as your vehicle trips per day. And that's where your volume would come in on just road usage.
For
And
you,
that's-
yeah. But everything else though is still, yeah, is based
Mary,
on.
did you have to
Right.
leave at 11? Mary, did you have to leave at 11?
I'm ready to go into, okay, thank you. So how does this get monitored? Sorry, I'm asking all the dumb questions here, but how does this get monitored then? I mean, we don't sit there and count them, obviously, we just trust what they tell us. We do.
Well, we don't have anybody.
Yes, I mean, you can ask for volumes of what gets hauled out, right, and then you can verify with aerial photos and see if it looks like it's the
Yeah.
right volume that way after the fact.
Right.
But where the truck goes, that's where you realize you guys have tough monitoring, because you're not out there at every site.
Mhm.
That's where I think it's easier to have commercial be the small mines and industrial be all large mines, or all number, mine over a certain number of trips. That's the easiest way I would think for zoning.
You're talking in the sand part of it.
Yeah. Because if there's, 1 or 2 or 10 trucks going out per day hauling sand into a field, or that same sand being hauled to a processing plant in another county, do we care? And if we do, how do you know where it's going?
On a very small volume like that, I mean, it's no big mine. I mean, it's going to be very limited for any individual or whatever to, no big mining company would start anything or do anything with any of that kind of stuff.
And we don't want to have, 50 small mines all hauling out 20 trucks, which would end up being 1,000 trucks worth of sand.
But you could set
Or do you-
thresholds like that, so many, so doing the aerial photo and that, it would be a way of finding out.
And I think it was
Or checking
Fillmore
it out.
County has a limit as to how many new mines they will.
We have 100 and some existing mines, and, those existing rock mines, underneath that rock, they're sand, underneath most of them. They need to go down through the limestone, down into the sandstone, and then they get into the softer sand. So it's there, they move.
So who does the aerial photos?
The county gets aerial photos that they've been buying. I think the last one was bought in 2010.
We do about every 2 years.
Every 2 to 4 years.
Flywood, sure.
Plywood
Yeah,
is about every 2
Flower
years.
the Springs, so.
And
So then
Ronnie,
it's just,
your office does it,
I think FSA has gotten photos within the last 2 years.
yeah, we've used theirs to make sure that we,
And there isn't much that you can't find on a regular computer either anymore.
Yeah, I think they do annual flights. I think they fly every year, but they don't get new maps.
But they don't get the LiDAR, no, right? That's just aerial photo.
Mhm. Right.
County's done it here in 4 years since the LiDAR, so you have the actual owl face within 2 feet. So you can see how much bigger it gets along with how much deeper the mine gets. Now is,
That's an after the fact, though, right?
After fact,
That's after the
yes.
fact. It's been done then. Okay.
no, I mean,
If
you do reckon about one
if
go to
any-
100 and
but-
some mines every year and
If anybody
check out,
has any,
doubt it, but if you start to see some.
thinks there's any violations or increased volume or whatever in there, the roads are gonna show increased volume real quick.
We'll start seeing damage.
Yeah.
You set up counters in a hurry.
Oh, yeah.
the neighbors are gonna start letting you
Yeah,
know.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Like he said, with the counters and that stuff, and you guys that do road counts all over, I know you do, and any change in the road counts will tell you.
County
Pretty
roads-
much.
County roads get counted every 4 years.
Yeah.
Plus, if we have a project, we try to count. Township roads, they pretty much get counted before the bridge project, but otherwise they haven't been counted since 1986.
Can we make the mine set up counter? I don't know. Just-
Okay,
You
know,
could do,
You could do whatever.
well, part of that,
if you think there's a problem.
if there's an application for a mine, that is, transportation is part of
Yeah,
the
there's a
Application.
application
thing that-
process you go through.
Okay, if we have 100 and some mines open right now in the county, how many of them are limestone, and how many of them are primarily sand mines?
I have no idea.
What would you think? I mean, it's primarily limestone mines, right? There's not that, if there's 100 and some.
And a lot of those 100 some are both primarily inactive, you know, where they
Yeah, but they're
pull a
limestone.
rock, you know,
I
here and
know
there, small correct. But
I'd say
Very
majority
few
are
sand.
limestone.
Majority of them will be limestone. All right, so if we start out with the definition, commercial and industrial, and tie that, nail that down and so what we've got existing is commercial. Maybe the limestone quarries now existing would we label them at the point that they, I mean, would we declare, okay, this is a commercial
Well, they
mine?
did when they registered in
Yeah.
1972.
And that's what it's going to continue to be unless you change activity.
Right.
Right.
And so, if there's 120 active mines out there, and say 100 of them are limestone quarries, they're commercial mines, and that's what they'll continue to be until they change activity, which will trigger then an interim permit. All right. Now, the sand mines are out there, say there's 20 of them out there, I'm guessing, but if there's 20 of them out there, and the largest one is 50,000 tons now for construction, then if they're existing now and permitted under a conditional use permit.
Yeah, somewhere,
Yeah, now, if they move forward, volume is the only way we can trigger whether they go to
right.
industrial.
Because we don't allow processing.
What's that?
You know,
We don't allow
we don't
processing,
allow
and we're not
processing.
gonna follow every truck out of
So
there.
it's raw sand.
Yeah, so if
Unless we
they,
have some kind of a threshold. of
yeah,
sand.
yeah, so if we set a volume threshold for the existing ones and for any new ones then too, same threshold, I
Yeah.
suppose.
No.
All right, and then as long as they're under that threshold, they're commercial, and where the sand goes, they really don't care as long as we have a cap on it. But if they wanna go over that volume threshold, now they're industrial, now they're interim use permit.
Yeah.
And if there's any of those rock quarries out there wanna get into this, they gotta come in too then for an interim. And they're gonna be classified then as industrial. You would classify the whole rock quarries industrial under, or the whole, or, I mean, what if they come in with part of the operation? You say there's sand under the rock, they may wanna keep doing rock, keep doing sand. How do you deal with that? You know, is part of it, they're gonna have to.
Well, I'm sure they, you know, if there's sand in the rock, they're gonna haul the rock out or deal with it and pretend they're trying to get the sand. So I would imagine a lot of rock can be hauled out. But it's the same impact on the road whether they're hauling rock or sand. I mean, it's
I know, but, I know it's the same impact, but,
I mean, that's what I'm wondering.
Of air quality, maybe not the same impacts, or potential for stormwater runoff. You know, sand mine has a lot more fines in it. Wash off.
Air quality though, whether we're talking, it's all raw sand because we can't process it. So the air quality isn't here, it's wherever they're processing, you know? And since we can't process it in Houston County,
yeah, but if
it's all
we're-
sand, it's all
yeah.
raw sand.
Yeah, but if we wanna protect our construction,
Pull it out.
Right.
if we're really concerned about protecting our construction sand mines right now, we know the largest one is 50. All right, so if we give them a little room to grow, we should be protecting that industry just fine. And if it goes over that, it's triggering a lot of concern, and that would trigger, that'd be our threshold.
Yep.
Or they can, I would say that, you know, if, for future growth and that, if it runs a little higher, or in the future sometime, there is more use for the sand that's coming out of there for like for agricultural purposes or construction or something like that, because it's gonna, when we get all this stuff done, is to find a place to put any new mine after these are gone someday is gonna be tough. Even for a commercial.
But again, if you have the threshold under 75.
I agree with that. I mean, that's my thinking too. But they in the future, if they would want to, for some reason, have to raise that, then they come back to the board, and if it's for use other than silica sand or for
you know, silica sand to me is an outside county use.
Yeah, yeah.
And if the usage is in the county for a legitimate purpose, they should be able to grow and use this.
That's
Because
quite a
that-
bit of growth going from 50 to 75, plus
Yeah.
there's a provision in there for an act of God or something, if you
Yeah.
have floods, you could go over it, so I mean,
I am pretty flexible on, you know, on that. I think the limit of how much of the volume in that is a good starting point.
so, all right, so we have 120 some lines, let's just say 100 limestone. We probably aren't gonna get any applications for new limestone quarries. Have we had any new applications for limestone quarries in the last 5 years? There's so many existing ones out there.
we have.
Brand new ones?
We've had expansions, but not any
Expansion,
brand new
not-
ones.
Nothing to open up.
Nothing
But I-
open.
I can't recall.
I can't, since I've been on here, we've had a little expansion in a couple of them,
Yeah.
but of nothing that started from scratch.
I was gonna say, we haven't had anything open up on a county job, because they need to go through the process of getting that material certified on the DOT side, and most mines don't wanna go through that process to start up new mines, so it
Yeah.
needs to be a small township one if anything. And I don't think I'll recall any.
Yeah, so that's probably not gonna be much of an issue. I mean, we got so many existing ones now that could be, there's a lot of rock to go in there.
Must be a lot of variance, because down where I live in that, the road route had a quarry on the north slope, just 500 feet across the valley or so, and the northern slope of what was across the valley, and that was not good enough rock to be classified, and just right on the other side of the valley, it's a quarry that's been there for years, and some of the best lime ag lime taken out of that quarry that you got in this county. And I've never seen any sand around that rock quarry.
Do you
Just
think there's
in the
any,
difference, just on the slopes, and I don't know just why.
The state doesn't allow any rock out of plateau formation, so there's some really good quality rock out there that have some clay seams or potential for clay seams in it, so that whole formation's excluded. So that's probably what it is.
Yeah, I know the road worked to open that quarry.
And as I said, like underpass, that rock does not pass the expense anymore, it's in the formation.
Okay.
Ron, you were
Well,
gonna
if we're talking about the threats of silica sand mining and everything on new mines, and we're trying to get these two ordinances to kind of line up a little bit, is there any language we could put in there then to still allow agricultural sand use of the existing quarries, but no silica sand mining out of those quarries? Because it was bad on the new ones, it must be bad on the existing ones then too. And do you think that that's something that's so difficult to define or to keep an eye on, to say, you still take agricultural use sand out for bedding, for line production, or whatever they're doing for it and stuff like that, but say no silica sand. If you're caught selling silica sand or whatever to someplace knowingly, and you're caught at that, then here's the fine, or here's your permits taken away, or something like that. I mean, is there any kind of language we could put in there to treat them both fairly?
But the question would be, what is your justification for wanting to distinguish between them? Because if one truckload goes to a dairy farm, one truck goes to a
Same sand.
same sand.
Yeah.
How are you gonna say these are different? How are you gonna defend that in court?
Well, the big problem is you're gonna have volume. If you take one truck here, one truck here, that's fine, but usually it's gonna be one truck to the dairy and 40 trucks over here. So that's the question, is the volume. So you can say you can do agriculture, because we know the volume's not gonna be as high as if you did it over here. And it's kind of the same thing with like drinking water. If you said we're gonna have drinking water, that's fine. But now if we're gonna start pumping water to try and aerate the Sahara Desert, now we've got an issue with the water. So, you know, my big thing is just the volume. So
Yeah.
for agriculture, we know the volume's gonna be low, so fine.
Let's just stay there.
But if you all of a sudden wanna go, we know the volume's gonna be very, very high.
Yeah,
You
so
know?
about the only way we can go is by.
Threshold.
Right.
Threshold.
go back to that.
We had to have that discussion though.
Yeah, and it's a good discussion to
It's
have.
gotta go around.
Well, it
You gotta
still doesn't seem to
understand
be,
it,
I mean, it's still, I mean, as difficult as it is, it still doesn't seem to be the same, you know, because you're not allowing it on new ones, period. No threshold limits there, you're not gonna allow it.
No, not necessarily. No, you might, if somebody comes in with a brand new sand mine application, and if he's under, then if we set the threshold and he comes in under 75, he's commercial.
Yeah, the new ones are gonna fall under commercial purely based on
Unless
their
they go,
size.
anybody over 75 is industrial.
Well, then I'm getting confused. So if a guy comes into an area that we decided meets the setbacks, he's still gonna be allowed to put a commercial sand mine in and stay underneath.
Well, we gotta discuss that, but probably,
So all the kids can fill their sandboxes or something, you know?
but see, if you limit it to 75, that is absolutely not feasible in my mind. And then you could also go beyond limiting it to volume, you could limit it to acreage exposed. Rather than 40, you could say 20. You could say 10. You could look at your average sand mines right now, and if there's only 6 acres exposed, you could say there can't be more than 10 exposed at a time. Well, that would absolutely shut off.
Yeah.
And we are gonna wanna put some type of maximum area.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, we started working on that when Bob, when you were putting together a number of mines, that you come up with an average acreage on the mines, and, I mean, on what you've got, active mines right now?
Active? No, I have no idea.
But somebody said-
Registered is different.
Yeah, but somebody said with an aerial photograph, the average size is 6 exposed.
That you can see from the aerial.
You can see from aerial.
And that doesn't count the stuff
Yeah.
that's grown up in trees over
Yeah.
there. They haven't used it
Yeah.
for 20 years.
Yeah,
But that same mine might be a 40-acre mine on a registration.
Might be approved.
Under the registration.
yeah, proof for 40 years, but it's not. But you could put a limit on what's open at any given time.
Sure.
Right. A condition.
Very easily.
So with the volume threshold and the amount exposed, a new application came in, if they were agree to go under the amount exposed, under the total volume, they'd be a commercial, they could be a new commercial mine. And if they go over 75, then they're an industrial, right? So we're there. And even then, if they go over, we could still say no more than 20 acres exposed at a time, or put any condition on there we want.
And I think, well, we've been dealing with this interim thing and that, and this interim, you know, where any new mine would be for the person, you know, and anytime it would be sold or transferred or whatever, the interim would have to come back.
Well,
It isn't like
Not
a-
transferable.
it's-
well, then would that be just industrial, not commercial?
Well, basically, it would be, you could do that with all of them, all
Well,
new
you've
ones.
gotta go one or the other, right?
Well, you can do it with
gotta-
all new ones.
Yeah, any new permits,
all new
weren't we
permits.
talking about that at one time, Bob? Like, all new permits or something would be interim?
Not
Yes.
necessarily, no, you gotta define the use. Are you gonna use a conditional use permit for that use, or are you gonna use an interim for that use?
Right, but I know
That's
we
where your
talked about.
threshold will come in too.
Oh, yeah, right, but if you came in with a new mine under the thresholds, Bob,
I think you did, yeah.
if you came in with a new mine under the thresholds, it would be conditional use, right?
Oh, sorry, Don.
Say that again?
If I came in with a new mine application, but I was gonna stay under this 75 threshold, and I agreed all, you know, I would apply for a conditional use permit, not an interim.
That depends on how the county wants to set. You can do interim use for both sides. You can do conditional on one and interim on the other.
Right.
J Squares actually recommended interim on both
Both
sides.
sides, right.
That way you.
Industrial and commercial.
Yep. that
Well,
way you-
see, and the reason he just said that
And
for
you
is
would-
every operator is a little bit different.
Okay.
So if he comes in, if bought the mine, he comes in and he's totally changing it all, you as a planning commission and the county board, staff can turn around and review that plan and to make sure all the requirements are met. If he's changing things up where he's not, you know, he's not addressing a bunch of other things like, say, the other applicant was, like water or surface water, whatever, you can address them individually under an interim permit like that.
But if he bought the property and it has a conditional use permit, that goes with the property.
Yes, it does.
What
But
is
the
existing
interim,
now?
goes with the individual.
Interim can go
Right,
forward.
right, but he wouldn't get triggered to need an interim unless he changed operations.
The existing commercial, yes, but for a new, if you have
Okay.
it all fall under interim.
No.
New, okay.
No, the condition for interim, you can have it whatever triggers you want. It doesn't, I mean, you can have it where they can sell the land without triggering a new interim. You can have, you know, be triggered by a new contractor for a new, you can have whatever triggers you want.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I come in for a new rock quarry, would I apply for conditional use permit? A rock quarry, for a limestone rock quarry, that'd be still be conditional use?
Well, we haven't set that up yet. Today, we haven't set that up yet, but I mean.
Okay.
In our last draft, both construction and industrial was under interim.
Was interim.
We ran them both under interim because we could address individuals, like say if the company did sell, or say it's, you know, we've got a chance then to look at, to make sure like the reclamation plans are the same, everybody was on the same page as the property was then, or the quarries were transferring.
Regardless of my volume, it still would be interim.
Yeah.
For anything new.
Okay, for anything new, yeah. So what if an existing quarry is out there and wants to change operations, so that's gonna trigger a new permit, does that
Right.
trigger a, then he'll go to interims rather than conditionals?
That's what we,
So we have.
Well, if the board.
He's under a current conditional use
Yeah,
permit,
right.
that stays. You can't take that away.
But as soon as he hits a new trigger,
Right.
once they'd expand, then at that point they need to get a new
He may
permit, which
be
might
under
pull him
an
into an
interim.
interim.
And then the whole thing would be under an interim that he's running?
His new operation, yeah.
But if
Yeah,
there's,
that'll curtail a lot of people wanting to apply, because the conditional goes on with the property, if they give that up.
But see, that's the
But by
problem
then
that
they
we're
do.
running into, is if it goes on with the property, and all of a sudden it changes hands, and then they wanna do something different with it, and they say, well, you gotta let them go, because it's, the reason Jay had said that was it gives the county a little bit more of a, yeah, exactly, control down the road. So it's not saying that you couldn't sell that property, and the new person could come in and say, hey, I wanna keep doing what they're doing. Sounds good, we'll just write you a new interim permit, we're just gonna keep it the same that it is.
Right.
You know, so you can keep going, but if all of a sudden somebody buys it and says, you know what, screw it, we're gonna run uranium from now on, you're gonna go, whoa, 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 that's
Well,
not what it was
that
intended on.
That wasn't part of the conditional use to begin with.
It wasn't, but that's what we're saying, is if it was conditional, or like some of these mines that don't have any regulations on it from like the sixties and stuff like that, it doesn't say what you can or cannot do, it doesn't say the volumes. So now it's a free-for-all for anything, and we can't stop it. So by interim, at least it gives us the control to stop it if they wanna change it something drastic, if that makes sense.
How many of the existing conditional use permit, you know, when they come in to get a new conditional use permit for a different area, I mean, they're expanding for reasons, because they ran out of space within their previous locations, so, you know, they're not gonna not come in and get that expansion because they need that additional land. So it's not gonna prevent people that have currently a conditional use permit from coming in and applying for an interim permit. So they're coming in for a reason.
Okay, but my question is, so then you could have an interim and a conditional on the same property, on the same site? You could.
Quite possibly, yeah. I mean, different standards, different thresholds,
Different areas of the
uses.
mine?
different areas of the mine.
Yeah.
Going back to setbacks, back to that map that Dan had.
Sure.
When if we, as a committee here, decided that was gonna be a mile
Okay.
setback,
He's got, or Ron's got the floor.
if we decided that was gonna be, and he grade that out to 1 mile setback from all streams, does that mean then, if we accept that, no commercial or industrial mines are allowed? within that setback?
Without going through the permit, DNR permit process.
Our ordinance has to say that.
It wouldn't have to.
Well, yeah, you're gonna end up putting it into the ordinance to make sure that the applicant
Understand.
but he has got to apply to the state to get all the necessary permits in place. You know, the DNR process is going to have him working through, you might say the same, a lot of the same criteria as what an environmental assessment is going to be. They're going to look at everything from his erosion to his water usage to his surface water, where it's going to, how it's being outletted. I mean, everything is going to get taken a look at underneath that DNR permit if they're coming within that 1 mile limit.
Right, but my point was, that's if we don't have it where it's permitted within a mile, period.
Well, if we just say that absolutely no mine within, but the only thing is, then you got to take a look at the commercial side of it too.
Right.
Right.
I mean, how restrictive do you want to get?
Yep.
So,
I think you could go, if you set the threshold at 75, you could say no industrial mines within a mile, you could go that. But if somebody wanted a conditional, or, yeah, commercial, and then get a conditional, well, no, new would be interim, all right, so I'll quit using that term then, but a commercial. Somebody wants to start a new commercial mine, and he was within a mile. He would need to go through the DNR requirements now too, and a new commercial mine.
I
Anyway.
think, yeah, everybody has to
Well,
go
we
through
can
the
allow it.
DNR.
Yeah.
We could have different setbacks.
Their requirement, they're basically saying any silica sand mining within a mile of what you want to call DNR, trial stream or whatever, is required to go through the permit
Okay,
process.
all right.
They don't
say, yeah.
They don't say
commercial or
whether it's
industrial.
commercial or industrial.
Okay, all right. So he'd have to go through that process
Anyway.
and stay under 75,000. As long as he stayed under 75,000, he could go through that process. But over 75,000, we could say, period, it's prohibited, you can't go there.
You could, yeah, or you could say it's prohibited no matter if it's 1 or 2.
You could.
You know, I mean, you could, it's
Yeah.
however you want to
Yeah.
write it,
Yeah.
but you're right, if you had that threshold, you say, okay, we're gonna set that bar at 55,000, and anything over 55,000, we're not
You
gonna
can't
allow,
go there. You
or
can't
we're
go
not
there.
gonna do
You
anything.
can't go there,
You know,
yeah.
yeah, you
Yeah.
could do it either way, right,
Yeah.
right.
So even if an existing rock quarry right now was within the mile setback, and he found sand in his rock quarry, and he came in for an interim, no, that wouldn't get approved either if he's within a mile.
You'd have to go through the DNR process.
If they're gonna go over that threshold, before you have DNR.
Well, he couldn't exceed that threshold countywide. I mean, even if he wanted to open that up, he couldn't go beyond
You could,
75.
right, and, like we were just talking, if the largest right now is 50, it's quite a bit.
Yeah, it is.
We're not saying you can't excavate anything, we're just saying we need to keep it under this because of, health reasons and environmental reasons and financial reasons and, right? Yep.
Well, I think we can go down this road, we just have to tighten up the language.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right,
It's possible.
it's what's in black and white that's gonna count.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you've discussed threshold versus commercial industrial. You've kind of already talked about establishing upper levels for classifications of mines. That's all in this discussion. And you didn't add existing and registered quarries to the map, though, did you?
No.
No, that wasn't it.
We'd, and that's where we were just talking of, the possibility of using our summer internships,
Yeah.
interns to go back and really use that kind of a, layer to put back on top of this thing, to know where all of our.
And the
it'd be
households
nice
could
just to-
also be done on that, couldn't
Right,
it?
but it also, color-wise, let's just distinguish between what's rock, what's sand. I mean, under the mapping as we go through, size of the area and where they're at, that could be layered in there.
That's kind of, if Bob or you or whatever, and how many, just come up with a close estimate of how many active sand mines are out there and kind of where they're at. I know like Botry's got one down in Houston, Cookman's Valley, they out here. Concept's got a little one right out by.
You got Van Gundy's, you got,
Yeah.
actually, you're taking mining out of the river down in Brownsville, mining out of the Red River sitting there,
Yeah.
Houston.
What they're doing with that stuff is just strictly pretty much, I think, for road use or fill use, what comes out of the river.
Right.
Well, nice thing we got, I mean,
That's
what's coming out of
not
Brownsville there is
suitable for
actually
much of
building
this.
the Grez Battery, which is,
Interstate.
it's a good use for that.
Are those sites, do they have conditioners permits now?
No.
Because, what would be the, they didn't,
Like down by the Mississippi?
well, that's not in our
Where it's at?
jurisdiction, it's not in our jurisdiction.
Well, it's in Houston County.
Yeah.
Corps
Engineers.
Corps of Engineers and Fish and Wildlife and that, they all control that very closely. Up in Winona County, they pull a lot of sand out of the river, up there.
What about
Drove
down-
truck up there a lot, and, they'd have, getting across the highways and that stuff, they had special deals and stoplights and everything. Moving that sand that they'd already pulled out of the river for. A lot of they use it up there more for road construction. Some of that sand that they pull out of the river up there it's got a lighter color to it than the stuff that they pull out of the river. I mean, out of the rip down here. So I don't know, it must be a cleaner, different type of sand that flows in up there or something. But
regardless.
Okay, so, do you feel like you're ready to, I'll move on to the road agreement that was our assignment too?
Yeah, I mean, I can go through the road agreement, but, you know, a lot of the stuff in the road agreement depends on volumes.
So you think that's something we should,
You know, I mean, I think the road agreement is almost kind of the last, yeah, one of the last items, because it really is dealing with the threshold limits, you know, because I don't want to have a road use agreement in place for these small mines we don't need to. It's just too much effort and too much work for a little benefit if we're going to be having a small mine hauling out 10 truckloads of silica sand a day out to a processing site. We have a different mine right next door hauling out 20 loads of commercial sand. You know, it's just the threshold doesn't matter to me because that's the effect on the roadways.
So do you want to let the road agreement sit up for a while and talk about it later? Okay, so what would you like to deal with next? Or do you want to still talk about thresholds and volumes? Although I think
I think there's still much more to talk about setbacks to be done.
okay, you want to
I
spend a little
think we
time
need
on
to identify
setbacks?
everything we want to set back from
Okay,
and how that's going to affect both commercial and industrial mining.
the group agree that let's go to setbacks?
I think setbacks are a big thing too, because that could eliminate a lot of other discussions right there.
Yeah.
Really, gotta start with that.
Okay, setbacks, here we go.
All right, so this is on new applications now, right? Okay, setbacks on new applications, and so how about this mile from the waterway? Is that a setback?
I would.
What's everybody feel?
I think even in the EQB, that's what they recommend.
All right, so this is on new applications. 1 mile from class 2 waters, right? As you go-
Public, oh, DNR, public waters, and also the MPCA is class 2.
Right.
We'd want that on the large mines, but not necessarily the small mines that have minimal potential for
No, it's the
contamination.
second part of that, Rick, the DNR waters and
Public waters.
class 2.
And then the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency's class 2.
Okay, so Brian's question.
You know, 'cause I
Is
think
that the restriction you want on all new mines, or you want on just on the mines above 75,000?
Well, that restriction's gonna be there in all mines, the way
All new mines?
this document is set up right now.
For all new lines.
well,
It says silica sand.
well, what they're talking about, the restriction not allowing it at all versus allowing it with DNR permitting.
right, that's what they're talking about, with the DNR.
Well, I don't think so. I think we're talking about two different things.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, but, yeah, you're,
You know, are we gonna
So do you
allow-
want one for industrial and one for commercial, is what you're
well,
saying?
you could prohibit it for industrial, but allow it with permits for commercial. Is that what you're?
Yes.
Yes.
But I would say, because according to this too, I mean, if you had any frac sand mine, you could say it's prohibited from any frac sand mine or industrial mine that's above this much. Any commercial mine, you could have it where you have to
Again,
get
the
the
With permit.
But again, the terminology, frac sand mine.
What about quarries and
But the
other
thing is,
mines?
Frac sand is sand until they process it.
Right.
You know,
The term
so-
frac sand, we got to stick with commercial and industrial.
That's right.
And the thresholds, yeah. So we could say that, well, I'll just throw this out. You could say, this is on new applications. 1 mile within the public water, if it's over 75,000, it's prohibited. You could say that, couldn't we say that?
I would go less than that, just go 50 for right now, because we haven't determined a 75.
All right, well, whatever our threshold is, if it's 50 to 75.
the only
Yeah,
thing
or you
is,
can put
the only
that
thing is
down.
I'm looking at right now,
50 to 75, yeah.
50's where they're at now. With, you know, if all of a sudden, you know, as time goes on in business, or say we get a construction boom, I'd just as soon give them that little bit of,
But the only thing is, if you go from 50 to 75, they basically added 50% to what they're already doing. So we know that if in the last 100 years, they're only at 50,000, you're gonna give them 50% more of what they're currently doing? I mean, is that kind of excessive, or
it
can you go
wouldn't be
20%
50,
more?
it'd be,
Yeah, 50, half of 50 is 25, right? So 50% of what they currently are is 75. So
Yeah.
you're basically almost giving a 50% more. I mean,
We
they
can
can go
do, yeah,
20% more.
these are good points. We can debate that threshold.
And just
we
put
need
for
to-
now, like
but
50
for
to
now,
75.
50 to 75.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then over 50 to 75, we just say it's prohibited.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
find that over is prohibited if it's. And is that going to be kind of maybe our classification for industrial sand mine? I mean, use those numbers that you come back and say this is considered industrial sand mine from
Just
over this, and then you'd know that you're now industrial, so therefore it's prohibited. You know what I'm saying? I mean, does that make sense?
You can't, if we give you permission to start a mine, and you go through all the DNR requirements, and you get set up and start mining here, you could never go over our threshold, whatever we decide it is per year.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we can't put someone in there permitting with a conditional use permit, or, well, if it's a new mine, it's interim.
Right.
But he can't, if he tells us it's 55, he can't be doing 100 here from now. You know?
Right, exactly.
If
Yep.
he goes
There's
over,
no
he's
room
prohibited.
for inflation.
No, he's prohibited, yeah.
Okay,
So, I mean,
so commercial then would be less than 50, 75, they would need the DNR permit.
right, they would, yeah. That's part of it. He'd need a lot more, but that's part of it, what he'd need, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine with
And
that.
over the threshold, whatever he said it is prohibited for a new mine. Right. Now setbacks, so, I mean, that's one setback, that's just one setback. The other one is from, now, I noticed in here from property, you moved it from 50 to 100 in the proposed one here, is that?
For property
For
lines.
property lines? Existing deal is 50-foot setback from property lines?
Yep.
Yeah.
But in the ones you guys worked on before, you got it at 100?
We felt that 50 in conditions where there's sand conditions, present, 50 was not adequate.
Yeah.
Is that because of the slope wise, you mean?
Yeah.
Because of the slope and the
Yeah.
potential
Yeah.
for whatever, and that's,
So again, this is,
on sand where you wouldn't want to go any closer than 100 feet anyway, but I mean, where the sand is loose, or I call it sugar sand, against sand that you have to blast or mine, that's a different type of, you can control the face of that.
so 100 feet from property lines.
And it's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good buffer in both.
1,000 feet from residence.
Well, here's another thing, what
100
you
feet's a good
probably
buffer
should
on
do,
the rock
is
faces
1,000
too.
feet
Yeah, it is.
between the resident and the
Yeah.
mine, or resident and the property line. Because you're only talking 100 feet sitting there, you know what I'm saying?
Well, from a house.
Because, you start overlaying that on top of mine, that too can make a big difference
Okay.
on an area used.
Right now it's 1,000 feet from the mine, isn't it? What's the area being mined or the property line?
Well, the description of a mine goes up to the property line. You don't
Yeah.
include setbacks.
That's what we need to be very clear about.
Right, it's the described area of the mine is what you go by with your setback, just like anything else.
So it's a property line, then you go from.
Right.
So that's what I mean. Let's be clear about it, that the definitions, that don't, like, we're sitting there sometimes dealing with very gray area,
Yeah.
and it'd be nice just to have it clear.
1,000 feet from a resident, 1,000 foot from residence described property line of mine, yes. Yeah.
So 1,000 feet from property line?
The
On
mine's
the
property.
property line of the
To a
mine.
resident.
The house to the mine.
Resident.
Resident.
Do we feel that's far enough?
Well, you don't want
Do we know that's far enough? I mean, do we have air quality saying it's?
I was thinking we had something.
Was there something in this
Quarter
book
mile
about
feet.
that?
See, that's what I'd be more
Yes,
comfortable,
but
quarter mile,
and
either
the
quarter mile.
permit
from
area
all.
might be here, there might
See,
be
so
property
it's
line.
east main, it's east.
Yeah, there's something in here.
Household
But I don't remember.
But see, that doesn't quite hold up either though. What if a guy owns 80 acres, and he wants to mine in the middle of the 80 acres? But the 80 acres, I mean, are you talking about the surveyed mine boundaries rather than the property line?
Right.
Okay.
It's
So
the
we
property
have,
line of
So
the
you're talking
mine.
about the
yeah, we have.
mine,
Property line of
boundary.
the mine.
the mine boundary.
You're talking mine
The
boundary.
surveyed boundary of the line, of the
Of the mine.
Surveyed boundary of the mine.
The
So
described
approved,
property.
yeah.
Right.
The property
The
line
property lines
that the mine is
could be up
located
here.
in may be,
But the CUP
Yeah.
or IUP is gonna only
Just so
allow.
I know if I got you
Right.
right. So you're saying that if you had a section like this and there was a house here
yeah.
and like the mine was, say like this, you're saying 1,000 from here to
Yeah.
like this, is
Yeah.
what you're saying?
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
yeah.
As opposed from here.
Yeah, as opposed from here to here,
Yeah.
right?
That's where we get into, as staff, we get into this problem, because it's just not clear.
Right.
And that's why I'm straightening
It's
We
clear.
have to make it clear now.
And we can, whether we talk about 1,000 feet or if we want, like feedlots is 1,320 or something like that. Maybe we wanna, on new mines, maybe we wanna look at something like that. It'd get everybody away from everybody a little bit better.
I don't have any problem with that.
So change 1,000 to 1,350?
Yeah, let's have it up for discussion at the next meeting, or something like that, or
Sure.
think about it.
Make it consistent with feedlots, which is
Right.
1320.
Right.
Okay, we'll just
What do you
put
guys,
four,
what do you think of that, Bob?
1,350.
I think we should talk about sinkholes and whether we're already protected on our bluffs and our
But the 1,000 feet maybe isn't all that.
floodplains.
Okay, so it's probably about time, you're wearing out soon, your brain will be dead. And we have to set up our agenda for next meeting and when we will have a meeting and all that sort of stuff.
Before we go on, Naomi, we might want a few more things that we want to
Consider setbacks
consider for the
on.
next
Okay,
meeting.
well, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we won't define them, but just name,
Okay.
list the areas.
Well, I'm just gonna list them up here then.
Okay, if like floodplains, sinkholes.
City-
We want to
city
have
limits?
roadways, city limits. You know,
Public
I was
areas.
reading all of
well, bluffs, that we have for
setbacks.
bluff protection.
Bluffs.
Do we have anything that we want to have for bluffs? You know, that we don't.
There's something else somebody said in between roadways and bluffs.
I think public areas,
Public
whether
areas,
we've got
yeah.
parks or trail systems or something like
Well, that's a good point.
What are the bluff restrictions in this county as far as, I was reading this thing this morning, or looking it over again, and that, and there's, bluffland is got one restriction and not all counties are in this. I'll look it over a little closer.
Added residences up there because that's where we left off. Any other setback?
Shorelines. That was what the include city limits of roadway, you were,
And
all set, yeah.
Just, I think this morning when I was looking through, or reading this, like along the river and that, there's different restrictions for the bluffs and any state land, there's different restrictions.
Wetlands. Wetlands.
Wetlands and all that stuff.
Oh, sinkhole, we got sinkholes.
Oh, yeah. We addressed here, public waters here, yeah. Very good.
Thank you.
Any other restriction? So we will,
I see that Wabasha has 1,500 feet from any existing dwelling or well, and they have 300 feet from the top or toe of a bluff.
how about wells and septic tanks? Do we need to have?
They go along with the residence probably.
Okay.
They'd be but we need to look at them, because that well could be a half mile away from the resident. No, well, no,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be a half mile. No, it wouldn't be a half mile, but it could be quite a
Ours
ways.
is a long ways from. our
Especially these
house.
wells that are out there for watering fields, you know, irrigation on fields, you know, a lot of those aren't next to the house at the current time. But everything's keep drained out, vegetables, gonna be irrigation, irrigation.
Not you.
It's gonna be a big thing.
I mean, this is just a discussion, it's got nothing to do with our next agenda or anything, but I've been thinking about this as we go along, because
Drain house not there yet, but it's.
no matter what we try to put together, you're always gonna be wondering in the back of your mind, did we cover everything, did we get everything? I know it might come up at public hearings and everything, but down the road, I was wondering before we finish this thing, and, you know, if we get that far before we finish it, if someone could play the devil's advocate about that. Come up with a bunch of bullet items saying, okay, so I'm a sand mine company, and I'm gonna come in, and I'm gonna do this. Does your ordinance cover that? Or I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna buy up these properties, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this, and now, have you covered it?
Well, we need to do that to poke holes in it, make sure it holds
Yeah.
water, you know?
Yeah, so I think that would be a good thing for, for if people can come forward with just some ideas
Well,
for.
you know what you might do is, as time goes by, if you think of something, as the little devil's advocate, jot it down, and then at some point I will collect all your little jots about what might somebody say to try to test it, and then we'll go through that in a session.
There was a guy on the first, study committee, he worked for Matt, I just don't know his name.
Steve Beach.
Steve Beach, and that, he'd been in the agribusiness and sand and that all his life. I don't know if he still works for him or if he retired. I think he retired. But he, as far as giving us terminologies and different scenarios and that stuff, he was a pretty decent guy, I thought.
Yeah,
And I mean, he has the expertise, so probably, I don't know about all expertise, but he was in that business long enough where he'd know where the holes are.
Yeah. Yeah, towards the end, we can have a shoot a hole.
Yeah. But I mean,
See how many blasts we'll do a shotgun approach.
he's been in that business for umpteen years, and, Milestone's big, and they have all their lawyers and engineers and everything else they've been through the game.
So just as procedure for moving forward, Naomi, do we take these two drafts that you have already worked on, previous committee, and go on down through them paragraph by paragraph, and then incorporate side by side UPD recommendations? We look at that as we go through, what applies, what doesn't apply. Yeah, and then we make progress, and we're done with that section, and we keep going until we get right to the end. Because I think so far, I mean, I'm fine with these definitions and so forth, but at some point, we need to kind of have maybe a checkoff list that we've done this now. We've got through that, we all agreed to it.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Our assignment then is to go through the two earlier versions, drafts, and take the EQB thing and see how you can meld together. And then next time we will talk about setback numbers
Yeah.
and see what we come up
And I think we could, at the same time, probably look at Wabashaw's ordinance and then.
Yeah, not only EQB, but look at the other county ordinances.
Yeah, and,
Rick, did you give us copies of the other?
Yeah, I got it.
yeah, I got them.
Oh, I gave you one, the Fillmore, Wabasha, and Winona.
I didn't get it yet.
Okay. I'll get you one.
Did you think we had enough on our agenda, otherwise maybe we could have tackled size, what do you think?
Well, that'd be a different setback, but it'd be a restriction, yeah.
Yeah, the
with.
size,
On the acre-wise, or
the size of mine.
I think we did talk about too is density, how many we're gonna
Yeah.
allow.
Number of them and how far between, distance between.
One thing that you didn't hand out, Rick, was Olmsted County's ordinance, which, they went more on the threshold type stuff instead of going commercial and industrial. They went purely on thresholds for roadway impacts and stuff. I don't know if that, how their mines go, is that, are their mines set up totally based on threshold, or is that set up on industrial and commercial, do you know?
Well, in those last two
It's a
area
different
ones
viewpoint of looking at them, we might want.
and density, we could compare all the ordinances and break down what each one does and then decide what we want to do.
Yeah, you've already addressed that in these.
Mhm.
in these.
Initial ones, yeah.
But we could change it, yeah.
Right. It's not
What we looked
concrete.
at today on these overlays, and we never, when we were looking at this, but these things have, we have any of that information.
That was
So
interesting. See,
that'll all get incorporated into this thing as we move forward, I
Because then you get that total picture.
Now, based on what we talked, what if we have a rock quarry that's at 150,000 tons and all of a sudden they want to go to 200 or 250? Is that some trigger anything, or you still leave them go, or
That's why I assume the threshold would be pretty good.
be 150 on a rock quarry too? 150 on a rock quarry, if they want to
So
go
you want a maximum threshold too that you have to establish.
for both. one for sand.
Yeah,
one for-
because you've got the one for commercial, now you need one for industrial.
Yeah.
Well, I look at it too, you know, as the cities are going farther and farther and farther out, they need rock. So it's not, the railroad tracks in here, it's not saying someday that this rock here couldn't be shipped to the cities too.
Right.
Like down by the Crescent there, the Abnett Quarry and that. I know there's a lot of rock hauled over to across out of that quarry. That's a huge bit. I was just wondering if you have any idea what could,
I don't know how the volume comes
yeah,
out.
the Crescent Township is controlling that, or?
100,000 comes out of Abnett.
Well, I would have thought it was a lot more than
I'll say, talk to them. That's another
Okay.
quarry that, you know, the operator said, or the owner, that, you know, if we have any questions, they'd be willing to come in and provide feedback.
So which one is that, 150?
Okay.
Gangler, down on County 32.
But that's only because we've had this major road project sitting here too. The average year, you're probably not gonna get that.
So 150 give them plenty of room. The
Yeah.
rock court should give them plenty of room then if they average 100.
Yeah.
Set a date.
Once they get, you know,
For your
like
next
76 and all of that.
How long is it gonna take you to go through and compare 3, 4, 5?
I like 2 weeks in the south.
Okay. We
Next
have
week's
one, we have one nomination
For 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Me too, I'm gone next week, so 2 weeks
Okay.
would work for me too.
2 weeks from today would give you the 12th of May.
Unless the sun shines.
Yeah.
I was gonna suggest that if things worked out for next week, because it doesn't sound like the weather is gonna be good.
No, you
all
won't be able to
week.
do anything early
I
next
wonder if we
week.
can just kind of run this by a little bit. If the weather ain't gonna cooperate 2 weeks from now, you might be,
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
The
that
only-
would be the 5th of May. We could
I
at
mean,
least go
I'm-
through these things, even if you
flexible.
can't get, you know, go as far as you can in the, going through the ordinances, and we'll discuss these setbacks, and then see how far we can get in the ordinance.
Are you thinking next week, what?
Well, I was, because it sounds like rain all week, this week, and even rain again Sunday, so we, as far as I'm concerned, we need a boat to the field probably. And 2 weeks from now might be, we might,
Your
you know,
prime time?
might be prime time. It
Used
might get to be
ground,
prime
that's
time.
right.
well, we're under a timeline here too, you know.
All right, well, I'll go with that then. You want to do the 5th?
Okay.
Is the 5th okay with everybody now that we've turned it around a few times?
I won't be there
Oh,
Well,
on the 5th. But that's okay, we got, I mean, you're
Can't
just
wait.
gathering information now
right,
anyway.
that's true.
We're not-
Okay, so the 5th at 10 a.m., 10 to 12. I appreciate it if you can do that, because this week, my money counter at church could do it on Sunday, but next week, I have a different counter, and she cannot do it except on Monday morning, so that's why we're set back to 10 o'clock instead of 9.
that's, no, 10 o'clock's better. 10 o'clock's better.
Okay.
I'm not trying to
So,
push this thing ahead, I'm just
Well,
looking at the weather.
I would like to be done with this before Christmas, before October. So,
right.
I said that last time, I want to be done by October, that's my goal for you guys. So, next week, same time, same station. All right. Peace.
Size, I mean, good idea, if you don't wanna. Here's what we are right now. Don't you think that's
Want to get together for coffee or lunch?
It'd be great. Get somebody that's gonna have to. That's good. Go to the next one. Good, you know where they're at. You can fix that.